to the collective. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. My apologies on the poster today. Brady had actually mentioned this to me earlier. He wasn't going to be able to make it today, and then I forgot to adjust my settings. We originally had Andrea Ross scheduled as well. She's unfortunately able to make it due to some travel restrictions, or not restrictions, travel issues. But we are going to still kick the last day of Coaches Week in the teeth today. We got Matt joining us. It's going to be a very good day. Now, while I am explaining all of that, y'all should be hitting the buttons. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all those good things so you get your emails in the morning when we go live, which is, of course, every day. Now, if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, by all means, put them up in the comment section. Kind of like this one, Salty Jinx in first before Winterstorm can get in here. Morning all. I like
Nice.
I love a good competition, man.
Right? Who's going to get in here first?
Who doesn't love a good competition?
This is great. So, we're going to get into Coach this week. I got two really good video questions to dive into a conversation on. Any thoughts or anything before we get started?
Nope, hit it.
Oh, okay. Actually, before we get there, Matt.
Yes.
Give us a quick little intro. Who you are, where you come from. You got 15 seconds.
15 seconds. I don't know if I can do it in 15 seconds. Wait, can I have my picture? There we go. Cool.
Yeah,
Hi, my name is Matthew. Let's see. Veteran, now going through school. Health and life coach on the side. Primarily focused on nutrition and amateur biohacker. I guess that would be doing good. Oh, and Sean's pain in the ass. Let me.
There you go. That was under 10 seconds.
Biohacker. I like it.
Yeah.
Biohacker. There we go. So, what do you got? What are you going to say? I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, that was it, buddy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I thought I cut you off. All right. So,
no, 10 seconds. We're good.
Okay. There we go. I'm a little jacked up today. Here we go. We got.
Have you been drinking coffee, Chance Burles?
I have been drinking coffee, of course.
Perhaps too much.
I did some jujitsu this morning. I'm in great spirits.
Right, of course.
I've been running around.
Yeah, of course. You've got your jazz hands all fired up.
It's on, let me tell you. So we got the first question is from Salty, so I'm going to put that one up there, and we will discuss it. Here we go.
Nice.
It's Saturday. There's one more day left in Coaches Day, I think. I got one question. When you're dealing with older operational athletes, or older athletes in general, older clients, especially those who are years into recovery from injury, how do you get them to mitigate stress injuries related to those previous injuries? And how do you get them to focus not only on building themselves towards the goal, but building up those areas for physical resilience with regards to those injuries? And how do you deal with the psychological requirement of getting them to push for that recovery bit? Again, it's been an awesome week to all the coaches, and thank you very much to the collective for having this again.
Bam. There we go. So, Matt, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think?
So I haven't really coached many athletes. It's more like the health and life, changing a diet and, going from I'm going to say a sick lifestyle to a healthy lifestyle, right? So to answer this question, I can't really go too deep into the athlete side of the house, but I do know from the psychological side that sometimes there has to be a reassessment of the goals and the priorities for an individual. Sometimes they come to me or to a coach and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And then sometimes it's just not possible. Like I know myself, I got a number of injuries where I would love to do obstacle races again. I would love to, jump over walls and stuff like that. But I know that my knee will not even survive 2 kilometers into a run. So I have to adjust my goals. I have to adjust my plan and how to still get the same satisfaction of doing what I love and enjoy, but changing the elements of it. So it is still beneficial and still has a similar outcome, but it is not the same. And sometimes that's a sad realization that I have to, and other people have to come up with too, is that sometimes injuries are too great to overcome, and you just have to learn to adapt and overcome, as we discussed earlier today, to fix a problem and carry on being the best that you can be in your own best way.
I like it. Shaun, what are you thinking?
Okay, I do have a couple of starting ideas to address this question to some degree. At least it'll open up the conversation, and then maybe we can play with it a little bit, and etc. So, first things first. This is not. None of this is directed at Salty Jinx 111 because, as far as I can see, and I've been watching him for quite some time now, he's kind of got a good system in place. Like he's answering his own question to some degree. But maybe some of this will help him as well. Who knows? I think that when someone is getting out of the military, I'll use veterans as the example, since it will help act as the proxy for the solution to some degree. We all think we know what our bodies can't do. Once we've sat around a little bit, taken some time off, as a veteran and thought, yeah, my arm hurts, my shoulder hurts, my leg hurts, my back hurts, my knees hurt, this hurts. I don't see as well as I used to. I don't hear as well as I used to. I don't think as well as I used to. And so lots of thoughts. But as far as I'm concerned, these kind of things need to be tested, pressure tested. So you have your idea of what you think you can't do, but it's never been tested to its limit to see if you can do more than that. And who's going to do the testing? Probably not you, because you've already established that you can't do certain things. You've kind of drawn a line in the sand of my eyesight's too bad or my back's too sore, whatever the case is. You've kind of determined your state and you've come to a conclusion that you can't do a half an inch beyond that. And so I would suggest that you're not a professional. You're not a coach of you. Find a professional or find a coach that can test your limits. And by that, I mean simple things like your range of motion. Can you touch your toes? You probably don't know, because the last time you tried to touch your toes was maybe many years ago, and you've forgotten that it is actually a thing that you can use as a tool to test your range of motion. Can you put this hand behind your back and touch it with the other hand? These kind of things to determine who you are right now. Not what you think you are right now, but who you actually are and what you actually can do. This moment. You need to test these things to your range of abilities to establish your true range today. Not your conceived range, not your sort of, this is my idea of what I can and can't do. Have a professional determine that for you. And then once that has been established, you're now sitting down with that professional, we'll call it a coach, and they're looking you square in the eyes and saying, it's not that bad. We've got some real workarounds here. I see a path to success, like immediately. And this is how we're going to do it, ... And so, again, this is not directed at Salty. This is directed to anyone out there who thinks that they can't do ... Well, that's your opinion. Come and talk to me and we'll establish a professional determination on what you can do. And I can assure you that you can do more than you think. And so that's kind of where I'd like to throw it out there as an opener, and we'll see where we go with that.
I like it. I like it a lot. Just quickly, real quick, Taryn jumped on here. Afternoon. Good to see you. You should check your messages, though, buddy, because I sent you one. Winter Storm jumps in here, says, good afternoon, all. Salty and Salty Jinx 111. Looks like Salty beat you, Winter Storm. You're going to have to up your game, pick up the pace a little bit. Yeah, okay, so he's not going to be able to make us. Okay, whatever. We're going to move on. It's funny because the point that you made, Shaun, was basically figure out a baseline. Like reset your baseline to figure out where you are again. And that's I wrote that down as soon as I was listening to the question. I was like, that's going to be the point here. But the other...
Reset the baseline. Not exactly. You, though.
Yeah. Have somebody else.
You're not resetting your baseline. Yes. You're the village idiot who thinks you've got a baseline. Yes. As yet to be determined by a professional who is not a village idiot. Yeah. And so it's key that you reset your baseline through a set of professional eyes, not just your own.
Matt, you got any thoughts on it?
No, I like that very much. And I do believe that's what I was trying to get with my thing, is that you have to reset the baseline. And if for me, sometimes it is resetting it to something different, but I like what Shaun's going with this, is having somebody else assist you, because your option is not a diagnosis, right? I mean, you can say, I can't do this, and you will. As soon as you say you can't do this, you won't do it, plain and simple. But if you have someone else keeping you accountable and pushing you a little bit further and saying, hey, let's discover a different path to this versus the status quo, then yeah, 100% you need to be pushed by someone else to rediscover who you are or rediscover where you want to go.
I think this is a great line of discussion too, because the next question I have is based really around the concept of not just the physical capabilities, but the overall capability within our own minds. And I love that you brought up veterans as an allegory, Shaun, because I think it's a really great visible allegory as for transition in general, right? When you leave something that is life consuming, which the military can be, and you enter into a completely new realm, you have to reset a baseline. Matt and I were talking about this earlier, he's in school, and one of the challenges that I experience, that he's experiencing as well, is the fact that you are no longer surrounded by people that are driven, that want to work, that want to do things. And now you're in school with a bunch of people who are just out of high school who don't have the experience that you do, and you don't know how to bridge that gap, if that makes sense. And I think that comes down to figuring out your baseline at the end of it. But Matt, you got any points or thoughts to add on to what I just said?
No, I agree with that. It is a difficult bridge to cross. I'm not going to say downgrade, but I mean, you have to bring yourself to the class level, even though you can be a little bit higher. And Shaun's going to jump on me right now and say this, but why don't you bring the rest of the class up? And it's like, yeah, I that's the thing too. However, do you drag yourself down to bring everyone else up, or do you bring yourself up and leave people behind? It's kind of catch-22, right? So, yeah, that's all I got on that one. It's something I'm learning myself too. This is something that I'm keeping myself accountable for, or to keep myself at a high standard, but at the same time, make sure I'm interacting with the class too as well and the peers around me.
Shaun, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that in a sec, but I got to get this out there from the previous question, and that is talking about when someone thinks that they can't do it. You know what the irony of that is? Because I've done this a boatload of times. The irony of it is when someone says to me, yeah, I can't do that, man. Do you know what I do? I flippity flop it. I look them in the eye and say, you're probably right. I doubt that you can do it. You want to make a veteran furious? Tell them they can't do it. But they're quite happy to tell themselves that they can't do it. So they'll buy into their own dialogue day after day after day, comfortable in hearing their own voice in their own head say, I can't do it. But then when I walk up in front of them and say, dude, I doubt you can do it, they'll start freaking levitating angry. You know what I'm saying? So it should illustrate that sometimes our own voice is the wrong voice. Sometimes we need an external voice. That's called coaching. And that external voice has to be predicated on timing and the mode of delivery. And so I can deliver a message in a whole pile of ways. I'm just looking to deliver it in the most effective way, which requires me to have a full spectrum of conditional emotions attached to it to have that person understand that we're in the game together. And so as veterans, again, using that as the proxy for the overarching conversation, they will tell themselves that they can't do it. But if I tell them they can't do it, they will do it. And so it's the irony of the matter. Does that make sense to you, fellas?
Yeah, 100%.
The funny part is I actually said this to, when I was in school, I said the same thing to a bunch of students actually, which is kind of mind blowing, almost word for word. But we have Steve joining us. He is here. I'm just getting him to fix his camera. We're gonna get him on here in a second. There he is. He had something blocking his camera. Oh, and it's gone again.
All right, let's not fixate on that, Chance Burles.
Yeah, we're gonna get him sorted out here in a second. Now, I completely lost my train of thought, so I'll
take over. So Matt was talking about raising up all boats around you, and so as his job as a student in that classroom, and let's just categorize it as a student that is maybe a leader in the classroom or someone who is certainly more experienced and can add some sage wisdom to a younger classroom. It's Matt's job to figure out his balance on how best to look after Matt while still keeping an eye on the classroom and how best to raise all boats that are around him. And so he's got to establish a tactical and strategic battle space plan. And so by strategic, he's got to understand what his overarching reason for existence in that classroom is in respect to everyone else that's there. That's strategically, he's got to figure that part out. But tactically, he's got to execute on that on the daily. And tactically, things shift. That's the beauty of tactics. They're not strategies. Strategies are long overarching thematics, whereas tactical is adjusting in the moment to the moment. And so there are going to be times when Matt is in that classroom and he's got to do it way different than he anticipated the day before. But that's tactical. That's him adjusting on the fly. But his strategy of, I'm just going to try to help these young bucks. Well, now he knows what he's doing in the classroom. But on the daily, he's got to adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's kind of how I do take it. I'll even throw in there that I actually have a technical plan too, because I got to pass grades, C's a P and the weekend's free. I have to have a piece of paper at the end of my 2 years. But yeah, that's pretty much, I go in with that attitude is like, I'm going to crush it myself, but I'm going to make sure everyone else is doing good too. We were doing presentations the other day, a couple large presentations, and a lot of the other students, they don't have practice presenting in front of people or even online or anything, right? And so they would hyper us, all jumpy and stuff and get their heart rate going and breathing and stuff. And so I actually took 5 minutes out of my instructor's day to teach the class how to do box breathing, just to have the kids calm themselves down. They can go up there and give a better presentation. So yeah, you have to walk the walk, my friend.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it. Steve,
Hi,
we got you figured out here. You're muted though. Hold on a second.
What's up, guys? What's up?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good.
Good to have you on here. Thank you so much for jumping on here last minute.
Yeah, you bet.
Appreciate it. This is awesome. So, the question earlier, you know what? It's quick. I'm going to replay it, and then I'll get your thoughts on it, and then we'll carry on with what we're going on. Here we go.
Okay. It's Saturday. There's one more day left in Coach's Day, I think. I got one question. When you're dealing with older operational athletes or older athletes in general, older clients, especially those who are years into recovery from injury, how do you get them to mitigate stress injuries related to those previous injuries? And how do you get them to focus not only on building themselves towards the goal, but building up those areas for physical resilience with regards to those injuries? And how do you deal with the psychological requirement of getting them to push for that recovery bit? Again, it's been an awesome week to all the coaches, and thank you very much to the collective for having this again.
What are you thinking, Steve?
I kind of lost a little bit of Wi-Fi there. So his gist is older athletes, how to deal with mitigating issues that they have currently. Yes?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. welcome to older age. We all have it. You know what I mean? I mean, we all want to jump over a lake at 20 years old, which we probably could at, at 40 on beyond. You're like, hey, this isn't working like it used to. And it's just a change in life. It is. I mean, you got to realize that. I mean, you are not the 18-year-old, 19-year-old sapper carrying all that freaking weight through the night with 2 hours of sleep. You're just not doing it anymore. And so you shift focus to what you're trying to achieve now. Everything is done in smaller doses, man. I'm telling you. And this is what I talked about earlier on. Smaller tasks equal confidence. Confidence equals task completion. And if you break stuff down as far as what they can do and what they are able to do, and so I give myself as an example, I've had 20 surgeries all over my body. I've got 2 prosthetic hips. I've got titanium on my vertebrae. And so I've had my fair share of injuries, but I still am able to do stuff. And I know that I can't do what I did at 24, but I'm 52, but I can still crush stuff as a 52-year-old dude, right? And so it's a shift in mindset because we always want to think back. And we're always trying to put ourselves at a younger age, right? And if you go and compete against a 25-year-old and you're 52 and then you're upset, well, they're 25, they should be beating you. At 25 years old, if a 52-year-old beating you, someone's a phenom there. You know what I mean? It just shouldn't be that way. So if you control that mindset and calm it down just a bit, work with them and understanding that their objective is just different now. And if you have injuries, how did they get the injury? And you don't want to mimic the injury again, right? So bring everything down on smaller doses, which includes whatever they're looking for: stretching, building muscle. You just don't need to reach and grab a big chunk of earth like you did at 25. Now we're just moved slower towards those tasks and those objectives.
I really like that. That's fantastic. And I was thinking something earlier and I lost my train of thought, but that brings me right back, is the beginner mindset, right? If you realize, to your point, Shaun, if you go seek out somebody and you get a coach and they tell you, hey, your new baseline is this, based off of all these tests that we have done, we're going to reset everywhere from where you were to this new baseline, and now we're going to work from here. The real mindset, or the real shift there, is the mindset. It's not even the physicality. It's just being able to go, oh, okay, I have to restart. I have to go back to being a beginner. Teach me, how do I begin? So in that mindset shift, how do you get people to see that? Because I think that's a huge leap, especially for veterans, for transition, for everything, to go back to that mindset of teach me. So Shaun, I'm going to start with you. What do you think? How do you get people to get there?
Sure. First things first, Steve, I didn't know you had a bunch of titanium in you. So now I feel like an underperformer. I wonder if I'll ever catch up to you in that regard. So there's that. I think that in order to understand how to get back to a spot that you used to be that is going to make you feel good about where you're at today, and you haven't been able to do that all by your lonesome, again, it goes back to go find a freaking good coach. If you haven't managed to navigate your way forward and you feel that you're actually starting to backslide, what's the definition of insanity? Continuing to do the same thing that doesn't create a better outcome. So start looking around. And that's literally why we are doing this week, Coaches Week, is to encourage people to look at things a little bit differently in respect to coaches and what they bring to bear or what they bring to the table. Up here in Canada, the coaching community or the coaching culture, the traction of it isn't as big as it is down in the United States. I've talked about this before, having lived down there for 2 years, coached down there a bunch of times and whatever. Down there in the United States, the coaching culture is not only much stronger, it's far more respected. But up here in Canada, it's not as strong, and it's not that it's disrespected as a valuable tool. It's just that it's not really considered as often as it is down in the US. And so I've done enough coaching in my life, and I've seen enough positive results come out of that coaching through my efforts or through other coaches that I know, that it's mind-numbing to me that people aren't picking up on what coaches are putting down in the way of, I'm going to improve your life. That's what a coach's responsibility is. It's not to make you go over the hurdles faster or go up the rope faster or move more weight faster. It's to make you a better person. If you find a coach that is only focused on how many push-ups you can do in an hour, it's the wrong coach. Because the push-ups aren't the job. The push-ups are just things. It's stuff along the path to become a better human being. Your coach will make you more awesome in a number of ways, not just push-ups, if you find the right coach. And so if in the past, certainly up here in Canada anyway, where there isn't as strong a coaching culture, if you had some bad luck in the past where a coach just didn't really work for you, and now you've written off the coaching community as being invaluable to your performance in the future, well, give it another try. We've had, now today will be over 20 international coaches this week. Just cherry pick any one of them. Contact any one of the coaches that were on this week and just throw them a line and say, how can I become better? How can you help me? Can I engage with you? And they might say yes, they might say no, it doesn't matter. But you know what is happening in that moment, irrespective of what the coach says, is now you're in the game. You're in the game of wanting to become better. You're identifying a path forward that is going to take you from what you are today and make you better by tomorrow. It's not going to happen by itself. You have to pull the trigger on wanting to become better. You're the only one that can pull it. I can't pull it for you. None of the coaches that have been on this week can pull it for you. You have the trigger. Once you pull it, we'll take care of the rest. So give that a thought.
Matt, got anything to
Um, back to the Steve story. It kind of reminded me of an old kind of proverb, I guess, where there's two bulls on top of a hill. One was young, one was old. And the young bull looks down the hill and said, "Hey, let's run down there and eat some grass." And the older bull is like, "No, let's walk down and eat it all." And that's kind of where that kind of mentality from being older and being wiser is that you can know and you see and you can overcome more obstacles with knowledge versus sheer rushing in and, throwing bridge panels all night long at 2 a.m. And as for learning and keeping that mindset of rediscovering and learning, one thing I do in my coaching is that I focus more on a childlike mindset versus not a childish mindset. There's a huge difference, but a childlike, that's when you're still curious. That's where you're still learning. You're asking why, and you're being playful about things. You're out there, running around having fun versus, oh, I got to train and work out. No, just go have fun. Go run in the grass and fall and roll and enjoy yourself. And that's exercise more than just sitting around watching popcorn and eating Netflix, right? But being that childlike nature of discovery, of learning new stuff, that I found is something that gets people back into enjoying themselves more. And then when you're enjoying themselves, then you're in the game, then you're pushing yourself forward and you're starting to move one step better than you were previously.
Absolutely. I'm picturing some salty old sergeant major going like, in the grass. Like,
Yeah.
what do we do? Steve, got any thoughts on that?
No, just to carry over that is just induce movement. As older you get, when you're born, you're in a ball, you kind of erect yourself up in your mid-age area, and then as you start to get older, you start to crumple back down into a ball. And the idea is, as you get older, everything starts to slow down because things hurt and whatnot, and it's an excuse to stop movement. But if you just keep inducing movement, you'll improve your life drastically as the older you get, just by inducing movement. And then you take these tasks that you want to do, like everyone's saying here. I mean, you've got to want it, and if you want it, somebody will be able to help you out there. There's so many people on your side that you can't even fathom, but you've got to want it, because no one's going to try to help you get it if you don't want it. And so you don't go to the supermarket and stand in the middle of the supermarket like, well, I'm here, what do I get? No, you have some level of a list of what you need to get, and you get out. It's the same thing with organizing your life. You know what you want, so go after it, right? So yeah.
I like that, the grocery store analogy. That's a really
Yeah.
good one. Because, yeah, absolutely. You got to find what you know. And if you can't find it, you ask the staff. The staff will
And what
help you.
happens? Somebody helps you find it. Yep.
Exactly. That is fantastic. Shaun, you got any additional points on that?
Yeah, I said it yesterday. I tried to use 3 C's as the example. One was you got to be curious and you've got to be consistent and then you've got to contextualize. And so then I morphed that consistent into consistency of quality, and then I converted it into curiosity, quality, and contextuality, which was not 3 C's, by the way. So I started off with 3 C's and then I went to a CQC, which is my bad. So it was just something that I invented on the fly, by the way. You've got to be curious. The 3 C's, you've got to be curious. You've got to be at home right now listening to this thinking, who are these knuckleheads and why are they telling me to be curious? Well, we're dudes who've got a few things figured out. We don't have it all figured out. We've got a few things figured out. And so those few things that every coach that has been on this show this week has enough figured out that their curiosity is what got them there. You're never going to go anywhere without curiosity. You've got to sit at home right now and think, how can I be better? How would I do it differently? How can I be like that guy, that girl, whatever the case is? You have to be curious. You're going nowhere without curiosity. So apply some curiosity on how you're going to get better. And then, once you pull the trigger on getting to work, it's got to be consistent. It can't be a one and done. You can't turn your curiosity into, I'm going to give this kicking arse thing a go for the weekend. That ain't going to work. What is going to work is a year of consistency. Why do I say a year? Because a year is long enough that then you can apply the last C, which is contextuality. So if you start today with a bit of curiosity, you go out there and be consistent for the next 12 months. 12 months in the future, you'll be able to look back at this moment and contextualize how you kind of sucked, and now you kind of don't suck. That's what you got to do. You got to be curious, you got to be consistent, and then you got to contextualize. And you ain't contextualizing yourself against me, or Steve, or Matt, or Chance, or any of the other coaches, or your neighbor, or your husband or wife, or your kids, or your dog. It ain't about anyone else. It's about you. You've got to contextualize you against you. If a year from now you're worse than a year ago, that's on you. And you should never be thinking that I am worse a year later. And let's pretend for a moment that I'm now 90 years old and I can't jump across the lake like Steve and I and Matt and Chance want to do because we still think we're 20 in our minds to some degree. If I can't jump across a lake when I'm 90, I'll frickin' figure something out that is going to stoke me. Maybe it'll be jumping over a puddle. It doesn't matter. What I set up as the challenge to baseline myself against, to contextualize myself against my 89-year-old Shaun. If at 90 I can jump over a puddle and 89-year-old Shaun couldn't, well, frickin' shoot up the fireworks. I smashed out that year by jumping over that puddle. So it is curiosity, consistency of effort, and then contextualizing yourself against a year ago. Then you'll know if you're in the game or not.
I like it. Any other thoughts? I got some comments and I got another question here, but anything else, Steve or Matt? Anything at all? No? Good to go? All right. So let's hit some comments. Salty Jinx jumped in here and said, morning winter storm, snuck in while I was moving the wood pile. River Viking, doing your best every day includes the days that are not going to be your best days. What tools do you use to breach and push past the obstacle of continuing regardless of the not so great days? I love all of your engineering references. Fantastic for a panel of engineers, except for Shaun. Well, technically a baby engineer, but
technically before you were.
That's where he learned all how to do it right. So the let's talk about this question here. So what tools do you use when you're having one of those days and to push past? Steve, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
First off, we're all going to have them. They occur in everybody. I don't care what level you're at. But the thing that I use for athletes and my own daughters, and to include myself, is if you're at consistency 90% in your training or whatever you're doing, and you just get that day that you're just not feeling it, and you're at 45%, 45% is better than 0%. So give through that 45%. And you got to make sure that it doesn't become habitual where it's every day you're feeling like this, right? And realize it's okay. You're a human. You have natural things that occur around you, emotions, external factors and stuff like that. They come into play with this type of stuff. So get over it. I don't put too much focus on it. It's just everyone has it. Get over it, and the next day reach back up to your 90%. So I guess I don't put too much focus on it. I just let it happen naturally, and I give what I can absolutely in that day, or the right athlete can give what they can give in that day, and then we move on to building back towards that consistency of 90 to 100% in training.
Outstanding. Love it. Matt, what are you thinking? You're muted still, bud.
Yeah, good.
There we go.
My tool that I use to get past bad days is honestly journaling. I am an avid journaler for the last 5 years or so. And if I have a problem or a bad day, I'll actually write it down. And then if I have a really epic good day, I write it down. And I actually have coding on the top of my book, good days, bad days. And so if I'm having I just hate life day, I'll actually go to a good day, read the page, and I had a good day, and that's the reason why. Or if I'm in a funk and I can't figure out why, by writing it down, it actually involves the problem solving side of my brain, and I actually start, okay, that's what I got to do to get rid of it, or that's what's actually bothering me. It's not the thing that I thought it was, it's the depths of something else. And then, I don't know, for me, having it visualized on paper, it allows me to use it as a tool. And as soon as it's a tool, then I can use it to fix problems.
I like it. Shaun, what are you thinking?
I'm going to cheat and refer back to just a handful of days ago where I was talking about wind conditions. And so I said that I'd got a flu shot in my left arm and I got a shingle shot in my right arm. My head was the size of an elephant. I was nauseous. I had no energy. I sucked. And still, I jumped on my bike and went out and smashed out the best effort ride that I could. And this is going to be critical. It wasn't a high performance result. It wasn't something that set a new benchmark. It wasn't like it was a PB. It wasn't like I did my usual lap 3 seconds faster. But it was one of my best days, even though I sucked. And here's why. Because I freaking got off the couch and went out and smashed. And that's critical. It's the mindset piece that makes me accept it was acceptable that day, makes me accept my performance as a pretty good day, maybe even one of my best days. Even though it didn't set a PB, it required a lot of effort to go out on the bike, adjust my mindset, and accept that I sucked while still smashing. And so your best day isn't always measured by the yardstick. Your best day is sometimes no yardstick is required other than your head stick, which evaluates, am I in the game today? If I'm in the game and I'm smashing, that's a freaking best day, man. The results or the outcome of that effort, the outcome will be what it'll be. And we can have several hours worth of podcasts in respect to focusing on outcomes. I'm just focusing on the process right now in this dialogue that I'm dropping, and it is simply this. Walk the path. Do your best. Don't whine too much. When you think you've got nothing left, you've got more. And eventually, if you're really, really close to breaking, well, you'll break, but you won't die. The next day you'll wake up, you'll do what you got to do, and carry on. I prefer someone with a mindset of a no-quit mindset, rather than I'm going to quit if I feel ... Now, Is that controversial, what I just said? Probably. There's going to be coaches out there that think, oh, but Shaun, safety and consideration of the athlete's health and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I understand that. I understand all of that. And I mitigate all of that when I was coaching athletes. I'm speaking generalistically now on a general mindset that requires you to have a no-quit attitude. And I'm not talking about no quit on the task. Because sometimes you have to quit. I've quit in world championships. So I'm not talking about the no quit on the task. I'm talking about the no quit on yourself. Two-way different things. So get right with the program. Believe in yourself. Don't quit on yourself. Go out and smash. Kick your arse and see what the outcome is on that day.
Out friggin' standing. I just wrote down a little line here, and I'm going to turn this somewhere into some sort of merch that's going to say, "You probably won't die," Shaun. Little quotes. Because I just absolutely love that line. Now, any other thoughts on that? I got another question lined up here. Everybody good? Okay, let's hit this question, and then we can carry on the conversation. Here we go.
Collective and coaches. Carl Holmstrom here. Trying to figure out this question, how to ask this. If an individual has had traumatic experiences, both physical and mental, from coaches before, should they heal first before seeking out a coach? Or if they find a coach, how is that coach going to help them heal, grow, and succeed? Thanks for your answers.
Bam. Now, we were just getting into this, so that's why I wanted to hit it, because we're diving down that road. Matt, I'm going to call you Sunday Matt every time I read it now. What are your first thoughts?
I'll have to change that then. Honestly, if the coach is worth his salt, I think the coach would understand that the person has had, if it's shared to him, has had bad experiences with a previous coach and be able to adjust and overcome that problem with the person they're coaching. That's pretty much it, buddy. Like, I hate to say, it's pretty straightforward for me in my brain. The coach's responsibility is to adapt and ensure the person grows better than what it was. And if he comes with problems that I had a bad coach and they took me down the wrong path, well, it's the new coach's responsibility to get him back on the right path and then take him where he needs to be. That's how I see it.
I like it, Steve. What are you thinking?
There's a trust build when you get a client, something like that, where they've had a bad experience before. They're cautious that they want to make sure that it doesn't recycle itself with you. And typically what I do is I talk about methodology of how we approach certain things. And within a couple of minutes, they understand where you're at, because you're worth your salt, or you have a plan, and you ensure them that you're not there to hurt them. And so you can get over. I've had experience where I've gotten over those pretty simple and pretty quickly. It hasn't been so bad where I had to try enormous things to try to overcome it. It's become very simple, but just a quick communication in the front end.
I like it, Shaun. What are you thinking?
I'm with Steve on this one. That's precisely what I would do as well, or what I would do. It's precisely what I did a boatload of times, and that is, if someone approached me, and I never advertised, so it was word of mouth or whatever the case is. If someone had heard of me and they connected with me, and loosely, I'm going to paraphrase, "Hey, would you coach me, Shaun?" Well, if I decided to accept them based on a number of factors, the moment that I accept them, my next point of order was, all right, how about you let me know what worked well for you with your last coach and what didn't work well for you with your last coach, so that I could understand not only how their mind works, but also what their past experiences were, that I have to be either mitigating against or concerned with, in order to, in that very early phase, have them feel more comfortable with me as a coach, so that they realize that I'm not going to be all lightning and thunder every single day to make their life miserable. That'll only be once a week. Initially. So it's my job to understand what they struggled with before they sit across from me virtually and say, "Hey, would you coach me?" My job is to understand them first and then make them feel comfortable next, and then develop that trust relationship starting several minutes after that conversation. So I'm with Steve. Coaching is a two-way street, trust-based relationship. And someone who shows up on day one, they don't trust me yet other than maybe through word of mouth or reputation. But in pretty short order, I will reinforce the fact that they made a good choice by trusting me with their forward momentum, by me addressing their initial concerns within that first 24 hours.
This brings up a really interesting question that I've been thinking about for a little while now. You've said before, and all the other coaches have said before, is that, you know, you're not, as a coach, as like a new coach, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to do things wrong, or you're going to have issues come up that you're not going to know how to deal with. Once those mistakes are made, let's say you make a major mistake, that person, your client now, doesn't trust you. Is there a way to bridge that gap again, or is it like, you know, I screwed that one up and then I'm going to do better on the next one? Is there a line where you have to say, okay, this one's like, I can't do anything else on this. I screwed it up. Now I got to change? Or is there a rebuilding process to doing it better? Steve, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
Well, when you get into communicating between two individuals, you can get very in depth on this because depending on the gravity of the mistake, somebody that doesn't really push themselves, I've watched them just blame every little thing on something, and that's their reason for quit. And so something that any coach here would look at and go, oh God, that could easily be bridged. But the individual didn't want it anymore. So that's their excuse to get out. So they'll make it a big thing when it's really not a big thing. And so you got to be careful with who you're talking about, how big this mistake is. And what I found, man, just make it simple. If you messed up, just say you messed up. But if someone knows that you messed up with the right intention and there was no malice attached to it, it's pretty easy to get past that because they know you're not trying to hurt them, right? Now, if your loads are wrong, like on a back squat or something, and it's just too much that they should not be doing, those can become dangerous, right? So it can actually physically hurt the athlete. And I use weightlifting because that's what we do with the girls and stuff, but it could be anything. Small mistakes, typically with someone with the right intentions, small mistakes are usually made. Ownership is a big thing, and you've already built that trust and you can move past them. I've never really encountered something other than when someone doesn't want to push themselves any further and they need an excuse to get out of it. They'll say, it's because of this, I don't trust you or whatnot. So you got to look at both sides of that story, just like I talked about in the last podcast about this whole process is a 2-vote process, not just a 1 vote. And so it's a kind of an equal shared stuff.
I like that. Matt, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking like if it's if we try something and it's didn't succeed, like, and I'm saying we because it is like what we were saying, a relationship between the coach and the coachee, right? If we tried something and it didn't work, if we can do something to change it, make it better, or take a new step altogether, and we agree to do that, I think that's very much a good sign of communication within the team. But if it's a solid screw up, like, oh, like, yeah, we did something completely wrong, I think it does take time to obviously regain the trust. But I would not just drop a person's like, yeah, I screwed up, that's it, we're done. I think there's always times to reassess and reestablish a proper path forward from any mistake, really. But again, it is a healing process involved in that too as well.
Interesting. Shaun, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so I'd just be careful to define the term mistakes, a coach making mistakes, because I've made more mistakes as a coach than anyone can count. It's just so high. The number of mistakes that I've made as a coach are high. But your idea of a mistake and my idea of a mistake are probably radically different things. My mistakes are twofold. One, tiny errors that I've made that I think are mistakes, but don't even register on the radar of the athlete. So it's my job to identify my mistakes and correct on those tiny little mistakes And more often than not, the athlete is oblivious to the tiny little error that I made. So is it a mistake? Not for the athlete, only for me to recognize and correct against. The second piece I would like to say is, oh, my dog's in my office here getting all crazy. Sorry. The second thing is when, you know what, I'm going to hand this mic over until my dog's out.
Roger that. No worries. He's got bears, he's got dogs, he's got all things happening. It's crazy. So now, I think we kind of hit on that. I don't think we need to dive too deep into that particular topic unless you guys got something else to add on. Okay. So we have a question from Winterstorm.
I do. I just want to finish up that second piece now that my dog's a bit quieter. So the other piece is a mistake that I might make is perhaps good for the athlete. And that's for them and me to figure out. So let's say the mistake I make is by pushing them just a little too hard. Well, guess what? There's going to be a boatload of those. As I better understand you as an athlete, as I better understand you as a mindset, as I better understand you as an experienced or inexperienced individual. So my job is to push you and push you safely, but keep pushing at a forward trajectory that was determined by you and me. If you want to be the town champion in macrame, chances are the velocity won't be hellacious. But if you want to be a world champion in something that is bonkers, well, it ain't going to be a macrame pace. And so if you identify what you want to be with me and say, at any cost, we're going to freaking push the pace. And so for me to push you hard, you're going to bump up against the fiery edges of, wow, this is all a bit much. So I have to keep pushing to understand how hard you can be pushed. And sometimes I'll just push a little too hard to establish the framework of what you can operate in for this month. Because next month's going to be different. And next year's going to be different. I will always push. And I have to make sometimes minor mistakes in my velocity push to establish that that was just a touch too much. The athlete doesn't break. They don't implode. They don't go home and adopt the fetal position and suck their thumb and cry. What we do is we look at each other and say, how you feeling? You feeling a little frazzled? Okay, let's just dial it back a little bit today, tomorrow, whatever the case is. On the fly, boutique coaching that pushes an athlete to their edges and then pulls them back a little bit, and we have a conversation. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It does bring up another question now, is there a point where, like, we're talking about making mistakes, but is there a point where you can, there obviously is a point where you could hurt your athlete, right? If you push too hard, you can get to a point, athlete or client or whatever it is you're working on, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, there is a point where you can push too far and too hard. Now, you're talking from years of experience, right, Shaun and Steve and Matt? You guys have been doing this for a while. When you're first learning, when you're first getting into coaching, if there is there a point where it's a make or break? Like, I screwed this up so hard that I don't think I can come back from it, or as the coach, I screwed this up so badly I don't think I can come back from it, or do you think it is, or is that just it's like a personal growth moment? What do you think, Shaun?
I have an example. I want to use this example while I was a coach. So I had I had an athlete in Germany, and I'd been coaching them for a couple of years, and they had a really, really big event. It's Transalps. It's a multi-day stage race across really hard terrain. It's a pretty epic ultra-endurance stage race. And so this athlete had asked me to kind of get them on the podium, and I said, okay, let's get after that. And like I said, I'd been looking after him for a couple of years, so I understood his rhythm. I understood his edges. As a coach, I worked on wattage. Every single day, they would upload a file to me, and I would see wattage. Wattage is the gold standard in respect to a yardstick, by the way. It doesn't lie. Heart rate will lie. RPE, or reported perceived exertion, will lie. Lots of things lie to you as a coach or to the individual, but what never lies is wattage. And so I always had a very clear lens on what was going on in that individual every single day. And this individual, before the event, about a month or so before, started kind of declining in his performance when I had him on a taper peak to prep him for the Transalps. He should have been standing on that start line, frickin' fired up and ready to smash and have like a PB in that event. But he didn't. Halfway through the event, he ended up getting ambulanced off for rhabdo. And so his body shut down because of rhabdo. And he contacted me from the hospital. And he was shooting me, emails and stuff like this. And back and forth over the course of the day, I determined why he got rhabdo. Because what he'd been doing, he'd been secretly training outside of my training program, and he effectively almost doubled his workload because in his head, this is what he told himself: I know Shaun's going to get me prepared for this race, but I'm really going to be prepared. And so he started making up his own workouts. He started sneaking out at night and doing training sessions on his bike and then not uploading them to me. In effect, he gave himself rhabdo by secretly training in a way that he thought was appropriate, which was absolutely not appropriate. He never reported it to me, and so when I started to see his numbers coming down and I'm asking him questions during the taper peak, he was straight up lying to me, and there's no other way to say it. And so then he's in hospital, and I'm figuring it out with him, and mostly it's all on him. Now, I didn't have a crystal ball to see that as a future possibility, but when it happened that time, I've never forgot it. I've never ever forgot that to some degree I underserved him. I didn't serve him 100% as an amazing coach. I kind of dropped the ball a little bit because I'd never anticipated that someone would do what he was doing outside of my program to put himself in that position. So the lesson to me that day was, man, you can run the perfect program. You can know an athlete really well, maybe even better than their own wife knows them. But at the end of the day, humans do human things. And sometimes they are imperfect choices that create outcomes that aren't ideal. So as coaches, we're supposed to learn from that, even if we did our job perfectly. We've got to take these moments and then build off them, build in safety margins to some degree for future instances like that we can protect our clients against. I hope that makes sense.
100%. Yeah. Steve, you got any thoughts on that?
Your question is about a coach making a large scale mistake and how to recover from that. But any coach that's worth their, salt is taking time and used experience in their favor to gain them to a position of coaching. I guess you can jump online now and call yourself a coach, and someone can get with you. And that's where those big, larger scale mistakes probably come from. Someone that's been in mountain biking, Olympic lifting for quite some time, their name is around a bit. It's get floated. And when they talk about where they've come from, you've got some experience there. And so I think that, like I said earlier, that I think mistakes can come back from. It's a two-foot process thing, but the larger scale mistakes that I have seen are from very younger coaches that are just in the game and they just go on sheer, oh, you can do it. And they don't offer the technique to build past something. You just go, you got it. And it's obvious watching that the athlete does not have it. I mean, there's a mental break and then there's a physical break, and we're at, beyond mental, we're at physical breaking now. And so what needs to be done is weights need to be lowered. We need to get the athlete back down to technique and correct pulling. And it's just arbitrary kind of a bro session. You got it, bro. Let's go harder. Come on. That's not always the case. So the younger ones, I would say, without more experience, have some of the issues would probably go more larger scale mistakes.
I like it. Yeah, absolutely. Matt, you got any points to add?
Yeah, I got a little story on that one. When I was still, I guess, like a year or two into coaching and stuff like that, there was a traumatic life change that I screwed up, right? I screwed up and I was paying the piper for it. And I really doubted myself as a coach. It was like, I can't coach. Like, I mean, I just screwed up. It was I'm done, right? But I ended up actually talking to another coach, and the coach actually, he was a ex-Marine down in the States, and he literally just like knife hand me over the phone. And he's like, dude, it doesn't matter. There's going to be people who don't like what you did and don't care. There's going to be people who don't like what you did and never talk to you again. But you are a coach and you've learned skills and you have things to share, and people need that from you. And that kind of kicked my butt to get actually back into the game and start coaching. And so it's not that I'm afraid of making mistakes, because I am. Like, every time I talk to a person, did I do the right thing? There's like an hour debrief in my own brain after I coach someone saying, did I do the right thing or did I tell the right thing? But at the end of the day, even if it was the wrong thing, maybe that person needed to hear the wrong thing. And I'm not talking physical. Like, if it's you're deadlifting way over your limit, I mean, that's a different game altogether. Like, yeah, you got to be physically smart on that one. But if it's something like put down that brownie, and maybe the person likes brownies, I don't know, right? Maybe they need to hear the wrong for them to actually get into the right place. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Now, we are just a little bit over an hour, so I'm going to hit some final thoughts, unless you guys got anything else to add on that. Shaun, you got anything to add on it? No? All right. Let's get some final thoughts for the day then. I really do appreciate the conversation. And Steve, I really do appreciate you jumping in last minute. Was fantastic.
It's what I do.
I love it. It's fantastic. So, well, let's start with you then. Went over today, and we'll shut her down from there. What do you think?
I think they were good questions. And so if you are looking to be a coach, gain some experience. Stay in your skill set for quite a while, whether it's shooting, lifting, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to take on too much experience. There's no rush to be a coach. It will come at a certain time and age with you and known experience. So the biggest thing that for a coach is you want to be able to have that one question when someone asks it and go, have an answer for it. You don't want to shortchange the client. And so there are going to be some anomalies in there as far as a very unique question. And that's where a coach can say, hey, let me go back and I'll reference it, and I'll reference it for you tomorrow. You're able to get the answer. What you don't want to do is be left with, I don't know. That's not a good answer. And so usually with experience and time in your skill sets, you've built that as far as providing those whys and those unanswered questions for those clients. So just don't be afraid to gain experience, and there's no rush to jump into coaching just because it's a tagline, because you can still be a good athlete, right? And typically that's what you see, is you see athletes that have done their skill set for so long, and now they transition into coaching because they know what it takes to get to where they were at. So gain that experience.
Absolutely. Matt, final thoughts?
No, I totally agree with what Steve said. I mean, if you have something to share, learn how to share it. I think that's the big thing about being a coach is the ability to share what you've learned, what you experienced, for other people to take and grow with. It goes into the lines of like being a teacher and instructor too, but coach is a little different in that you've actually lived through it, not just read a textbook and kind of, this is what I was taught to teach you guys. You are actually sharing your experiences. You are actually dialing someone else in to the level that you could do, or the level that you wanted to do. Again, get into age and getting older and stuff and jumping over lakes. And I'm like being older and wiser, I know now that it takes 6 jumps to get over the lake versus 1. And I'm going to pass that on to someone else so they can be able to jump the lake further and faster than I can.
Absolutely. Shaun, what are you thinking? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to leave it really simple. And I wish I would have started Coaches Week with this thing that bubbled up into my head, but concluding Coaches Week with it isn't a bad thing either. Rather than trying to be a coach, become a coach. period.
Bam. I like that. I like that a lot.
The only thing I would add to that last thing is learn how to communicate. A big thing is communication and learning how to communicate with somebody. And you can have all the tools in the world and you can know what to do, but if you can't communicate to me, then I can't perform the task, right? And so communication is built again throughout time, learning in different situations and stuff. And typically, the guys that have been in very chaotic atmospheres can take chaotic, remove it, and talk very calmly. Those are very sought after, but communication is a big one. Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely. My only thought to add on this one, and it goes back to me being a complete nerd, is the Kobayashi Maru test from Star Trek, which is you can do everything right and still fail, and it's what you do after that that actually matters in all of these things. Whether you're the athlete, whether you're the coach, whether anything, do your best. Bam, just like that. Right, and so by all means, carry on with this is the end of Coaches Week Part 2. There's going to be another one because these are so freaking fantastic. I
They're
really
so
love
good.
these week. So we'll set up another one before the end of the year, and make sure those that are listening, if you got questions, keep sending them to us. I will compile them, and I'll make sure we get them in front of the coaches. That way we can all continue to learn, we can continue to build, and we can continue to grow every day here on The Collective. We'll see you here tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.